Are you struggling to create an intentional headspace, unable to connect deeper with yourself? Come, and together let's address the elephant in the room. I'm your host, Sinead Roche, and this is the Uncomfortable Podcast. When I was younger, I used to look at my mom and be really amazed by the fact that she understood how to get around, especially like in different countries, in different airports, taking us to different places where she maybe didn't speak the language necessarily. And I thought it was so cool, and also I don't know, I was always really curious about the fact that how do you know where to go next, especially when it was navigating the airport. I remember being really astonished, okay, how does she know how to do that? And now I'm 21. I've gone to multiple countries on my own. I've traveled solo, and I understand how to book a flight. I understand how to move around and basically get the things done that I need to get done in order for me to continue on with my travels. And I think tying this into basically what it means to be an adult, I think a larger part of it is understanding different responsibilities, especially if you want to have certain freedoms, or you're traveling to different places, or you're just moving around a lot. You do have to understand, how to get around. Okay, maybe what are the legal issues and whatnot. And I think, okay, right now, maybe I'm doing well for myself, but there has been times, and especially when I became an adult, when I started uni, where small tasks such as just checking the mailbox, I failed to do that. And it led to some pretty big consequences. When I was in uni, I was on my parents' insurance, but I remember there was this big sign-up day where banks come to your uni, or maybe, the just insurance companies. And I went to my insurance company because I was so bored, and I just also wanted to feel like everybody else around me. And I switched basically where my insurance information goes to my location. But the problem with that was that I really wanted to be an adult in the sense of handling this administrative task, but I never checked my mailbox. And what ended up happening is that after I think 8 months or so, I checked my mailbox for the first time and saw a 6,000 euro fine. And I'm just saying this to show you that, yeah, maybe it's kind of easier, I think, to I don't know, figure out basically the admin tasks, or figure out where to go next when it comes to doing fun things and things that you want to do. But maybe when it comes to being an adult and handling the administrative tasks, the things that you really need to know and know how to do that aren't as much fun, I think sometimes if we're really not on top of it, it can definitely come to bite us back in the ass, not just legally or financially, but also in terms of how we build up kind of this ability and how we practice this skill. Because as we become, I don't know, even more mature adults or whatever, our responsibilities just keep on increasing. And so if we don't practice right now, making sure that we are filling out our taxes on time, making sure we're making the doctor's appointments at the correct time. Maybe we're filing for new residency, different permits, or we're looking for new apartments on time, we're applying for jobs on time. Notice the key thing is being on time with all of this. Then it really does kind of mess us up and set us up for, I guess, this continued practice of just putting the necessary and administrative tasks off. And I feel unless your parents raise you to do this automatically, or maybe you were neglected in the past and you had to be the adult, so you do understand what it means to, make sure you're checking all the bills, that all the bills are paid, or maybe you're just the person who was the eldest kid, and so you knew, and I think an eldest daughter specifically, so you knew that you had more responsibilities and that you had to be the one who was on track with everything and just become the organizer. Then I think even though it seems really small things and it seems really easy, maybe you haven't quite learned, and I'm also saying this to myself, maybe you haven't quite learned what it means to handle these types of obligations and make sure that you're handling them on time and correctly, um, in a manner that an adult would do. And I say adults with quotes around it because honestly, what what is an adult, and what is that even supposed to feel like? I think that's really different though. Like what it feels to be an adult is very different from being able to actually make sure that you're stepping up, in terms of the actual tasks that you have to do. And I think there's a lot surrounding why sometimes it's really easy to put these things off. I think there's a lot more that goes into it than you realize. And I know it seems really basic to, I guess, have this entire conversation because you could literally just say to yourself, like, you have to like make sure that you file your taxes on time. But I think there's a lot that's really hindering us. And I think that we need to set ourselves up better in some way so that we practice this ability and we practice this skill set in a healthy way so that we also kind of associate like healthier like patterns and like healthier emotions when it comes to handling the stresses and handling the responsibilities of what it means to be an adult. And so that's kind of what I get into today because I think it's really important to be on top of your shit and to learn, yeah, all the different legal, financial aspects of what it means to be an adult because, again, they're just going to continue to increase with the more responsibilities that come. If you want to have a family, that's an entire other big topic. And then because, life unfortunately also provides us with a lot of like different events that we don't account for. If we don't really have the basic systems set up and the basic routines of ensuring that we're kind of on track of things and we're organized in some sense, then I think with the more complexities that life is going to hand to us, it makes it harder for us to adapt. And I think that's when people then, they don't find a way to kind of like crawl out of that hole and really try to tackle the things that they have to tackle. And so hopefully if you're starting off with being an adult, then you at least know this is something that is important, that you do have to be like, become responsible. And hopefully you want to start building up healthier habits because like myself, I know as well that sometimes it's really easy to put it off. And the reasons like that it feels really easy to put it off sometimes, or not, I actually don't even want to say easy to put it off. You just put it off, is because I think when it comes to discussing these matters such as taxes, insurance, maybe understanding how to invest, even though this is a lot of it is just like organizational work, I think it's really, really daunting because you could actually fuck up a lot of things. If you're handling your taxes for the first time in a different country, and you don't really understand the system there or where to check, it's really daunting because that could maybe like fuck up some things for you legally in the future. And I think, and I know because of my own experiences, like I would say in the past year, I've moved around maybe like 3 times, I think. And I was living at one point in Germany. I was working there in Germany. Then I moved to my parents' place. Then I moved to Belgium, but I was studying and working in the Netherlands. And so I was actually just recently handling my taxes with all of this, and that's a lot. It's also really complicated. And because it felt so daunting to tackle, and because there felt like such a big pressure, obviously, because I could fuck up so much, I put it off. I put it off for a very long time. It wasn't actually until like maybe this past week that I really sat down to handle like some of the larger parts because I kind of said to myself, okay, maybe I kind of do need to get my ducks in a row with this. And yeah, even though it seems complex, maybe if I sit down and actually make the time for it, maybe it will get easier. But I think that's a big reason as to why we put these things off because yeah, I mean, there are just certain consequences that we're not ready to handle. And I think you also kind of feel like an imposter because you don't really know how to kind of like handle these things. And unless you're someone who takes initiative all the time, and even if you are someone who takes initiative, I think it's really different context dependent. And again, what the consequences could potentially be, because even though I might be searching up on Google, okay, how to file my taxes in the Netherlands if I lived in Belgium, it's not like I also feel like I can trust everything that I'm seeing there. And then I'm also starting not to trust myself. And I think I then kind of feel silly, like, or I feel like a child because it's like I haven't done this, before. And it's just really scary, I think. And moreover, I think that because of how all of this feels, and then with like the timelines of everything, and again, the consequences and the responsibilities, and then, when someone sends you like then another email about the fact that you haven't filed your taxes here somewhere, or you haven't checked up on your insurance, or like something might be wrong with like your bank statement, then it kind of triggers us again. And then, you feel a lot of overwhelm because it's not like your life was put on pause at the same time. Maybe certain like other like aspects are going on in your life that's also making it so that you can barely handle like the small tasks that you already have. And now like you have, basically more notifications about what's going on that you need to handle that you didn't have a grasp on. And so it can be a lot, and that can cause like overwhelm, further stress, and also like a lot of anxiety. And I think that even then it makes it worse because then you don't even want to go near the things, there's already a lot going on with you emotionally. And now you have to sit down and then do like one of the most, boring tasks as well, which also requires, even if they're maybe like simple tasks to fill out, yeah, you have to find like a lot of basically basic information from maybe your paperwork or something like this. They're also really boring tasks that require a lot more cognitive effort because it's not stimulating. And it's also not rewarding. When you fill out your taxes, it's not that like rewarding feeling, unless you're getting money back and you see that shit. But I'm just saying there's a lot that goes into it. So it might be the fact that it's a bit daunting for you. Maybe you don't have, I guess, the mental effort, like capacity basically, to still want to invest that and sit there like on your computer for a few hours to fill certain things out. And maybe there's just a lot of emotions like attached to, all of this coming in and you having to do this. And sometimes there's lots of documents coming at you multiple times, and or maybe there's been like errors in the past and now you have to phone someone as well. And then some people have also like anxiety when it comes to calling persons. And so there's just a lot. And so what ends up happening is we put it off and we just continue to put it off. I've done this so often where I just keep moving like in Asana or like in my like to-do list. I just keep moving the task off to the next day or to the next week or sometimes to the next month. And at that time when I do it, it's like, it's okay. I can still breathe, but putting it off is just a short-term mood repair. At the end of the day, I'm still going to have to do it. And especially when it comes close to the deadlines, like I cannot procrastinate it no longer. And so at one point, I really am just going to have to do it. But as I go through this kind of loop of continuously putting it off, like even when I'm dragging literally the icon of what the task is to do to like a next like week or next 2 weeks or something like this, I feel like a lot of shame that comes with it. And I think, okay, I feel shame for lots of reasons, but I feel ashamed because sometimes I feel like I'm I should have figured this out by now. Sometimes I put certain tasks off again because I feel like I'm an imposter and because I feel like I'm not smart enough to handle, figuring this out, figuring out like the legal system, maybe like in a different country. And not only because I feel like I haven't figured it out yet, I also feel like I feel ashamed because I haven't done the tasks yet, I mean, internally, I'm thinking, especially as someone who's like who's like me. Um, but someone who thinks that they do everything, on time, is very disciplined and whatnot. I do kind of feel like ashamed that I've put certain things off, because I just feel like I'm incapable of doing it, or I'm just too lazy or whatever to do it. And at the end of it all, I kind of feel ashamed because I don't know, I feel like there's such a big pressure sometimes to be this adult who has it kind of all figured out, which I know there's a lot that goes around. Like, a lot of people are saying, like, you don't have to have everything figured out. But I mean, in terms of actually, like, legal, financial, again, like these administrative tasks, you kind of do, because it will come back to bite you in the ass in the end. And I feel then ashamed basically that I haven't figured all this out, and that I'm maybe not in the best place where I want to be or where I should be already as an adult. And then, even after I go through all of this kind of shame, what ends up happening is I do the task, because at some point you kind of do have to just like pause with everything else that's going on in your life and kind of just figure out what's happening, like in terms of, yeah, again, your administrative tasks. But this kind of shame spiral that you go through, or at least that I go through, I think it makes it harder, because every single time then I get like a new responsibility, or I know that I have to do something different that is going to require me to sit there for a few hours, and where it's maybe like a boring task or it's really daunting and whatnot, I kind of then have this already negative feeling attached to it. And then I already know I'm going to procrastinate on it. And that already then makes me feel overwhelmed. And so I again go through this kind of repeat of this shame spiral. Then all the emotions and the past thoughts that I've had attached to other tasks that I've put off, it kind of comes back over and over and over again. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's just going to get more complicated. We're just going to have more responsibilities handed to us. And at some point, this has to become kind of an automatic process for us to understand that, like, we have to get such and such things done today. And I think the only way you can actually do that, though, is by kind of like making sure that you already have systems in place that help you to already like want to engage, within doing these tasks, so that you don't put them off, so that as the future comes with more complexities, that you're able to actually handle them because you already have like prior routines set up. And so, because I think one of the best things that is happening or not happening, I just think one of the best things right now as a 21-year-old is the fact that you're also surrounded by other persons basically who are going through the same things that you are going through. Or at least I'm surrounded by persons like similar to my age, or like I have my friends. And what I'm trying to say by this is that there's a lot of people who are experiencing this. And it's really great that not only, okay, that sounds bad, like that we're all going through like kind of this turmoil, but it's really great that you maybe not only have just people who are around you who are experiencing this, but I do like the fact that there's lots of like content creators and like there's lots of people who are online who are also showing that, they have and they struggle basically sometimes with handling this part of being an adult as well. And so it's kind of nice because I guess that feeling of like you're not experiencing it alone and like you're not the only one is kind of it's just a bit comforting in that sense. And at the same time, as we can all struggle like together in some sense, we can also work together to make sure that like we are putting in, like, we're making sure that we have the right routines for the future. And so, and what I've also done, like, especially when it comes to tasks that I am a bit more nervous about, then what I do is I kind of pair myself up with someone to handle like the tax information, basically, as an example, to kind of handle that with someone else, because I don't feel that maybe I'm can do it all on my own, and B, also just because it's nice to just bounce back ideas and then to sit there kind of frustrated with another person. And I think it also makes like for a good kind of like experience, because as life gets busy as adults, like sometimes there's not always that much time like to always spend time with friends or to even connect with new persons. And so it's also cool to kind of make this as an activity to connect with others, even though it's maybe not the most fun, but it's something that you guys all have to do. And I've seen this like online where people have like days where like their friends all come over to their house. They have like these administrative days where it's basically anything that you've put off, you do it now together. And I had this recently where I asked specifically like a Dutch friend of mine, and we sat in the library for a few hours, like trying to figure out, filling out certain information that I had to fill out because I didn't understand like not only the language, even though we have Google Translate and whatnot, but I was also a bit nervous on filling this information out along with like German tax information, along with American tax information, because that dual citizenship really just comes to bite you back in the ass somehow. And so I sat with her for a few hours, and naturally, what ended up happening, and we figured everything out. But also, like, it was really nice because I think, especially for me, my life is really busy. And so I don't get to spend that much time with people in not like a studious way. And so this was kind of like also some free time, and like we chatted a bit, we connected a bit more. And so it's kind of like a good way to make sure that you're like getting basically the task that you need to get done, doing it with another person who might even help you, or you could be also helping them. And then also kind of just further connecting with other persons. And I think also just realizing that like, hey, you're not alone in this, or hey, it's not that, it's not that you have to have this all figured out, because we're all kind of going and learning about this at the same time. And so I think that's really comforting in a way to make sure that you are actually, creating a good routine for yourself and also associating like better emotions with it as well. Another thing that I would suggest, and what I've done in the past, would be making sure that you create a reward system for yourself, because filing this information, or sometimes like just even making doctor's appointments, things that you necessarily have to do even for your health. Yeah, okay, we know it has a benefit in the long run, but like right now it doesn't feel like it. And so what you can do is create a reward system. So if you maybe had an admin day, or like, you actually like did the things that you had to do that day, that you've been putting off for a while, okay, then go out and reward yourself, buy yourself an ice cream or something. Just make sure that you kind of train your brain to see this as positive and a positive moment. And so that as you again like continuously get more things that you have to do as a requirement as just being an adult, then you once again don't go in there with like, oh, this dread and already knowing that you're going to procrastinate it, because now you have something to look forward to. Then what I would also suggest is that you kind of have specific dates for this. Again, and maybe if it's like 30 minutes at the end of the week or whatever, where you sit down and you really organize, okay, have there been some mails that I've put off or whatnot? Did I make sure to do this? Prioritize it in the same sense that you prioritize other things. Or what I have a tendency to do is, because in the past I've been really bad at checking like my emails and responding to persons, I would literally make sure that's the first 30 minutes of my day is making sure that I've handled like those types of tasks. But yeah, these are just some examples of things that you could possibly be doing in order to basically make sure that you're keeping your life on track. And I want you to notice that we aren't trying to guilt ourselves into doing this, because again, if we continuously associate doing these tasks with negative emotions, then we're just going to continue with the shame spiral, continue with the procrastination of it. And as I mentioned before, life is going to get more complex. Different events, different tragic events definitely are going to derail us in the future. And so at least if we can have certain routines maybe like in place that are already not associated with like these negative emotions, and like with the kind of fear of like tackling it, then maybe it can set us up better, which is this is what this is supposed to help with, like setting us up better for the future, because it will just get more complicated, And what you thought right now was difficult in terms of maybe like filing for insurance will be 100, not 100 times, but will be a bit more complex, when you have maybe like a family, for instance. And because I can give you right now just like tips in terms of like actually doing the tangible tasks and actually sitting down and get to the work. Yeah, that's one thing. Pairing you up with like a friend to do it, or pairing yourself up with like a virtual friend to like sit down and do it. That's one thing. But I think even attached to, I guess, like not a deeper issue, but deeper thoughts or feelings that come with tackling this or not wanting to tackle this is I feel like you feel like an imposter adult. And I have this all the time because I think it's so funny sometimes. And yeah, I know I'm only 21 and maybe I'm not considered an adult, but I do sometimes look at myself and I'm like, seriously, like this is an adult, like me. Do you know how much stupid shit I've said in the past like 30 minutes to someone? And so I don't really feel like I'm grown up. I don't feel as what a mature person is supposed to feel. And what I've noticed, I would say from like even like my parents, I think especially my dad, like he is not, I guess the more that I know him now, not that I didn't know him in the past, but like the more I look at him now, I'm like, he still has fun and like he's still like a kid at heart and whatnot. But he has his shit kind of figured out. He likes to joke about like life insurance all the time, but like he knows where it is. He tells us where it is. Like he's on top and on track of like his like legal aspects and making sure that everything is kind of handled in terms of admin tasks. And so he doesn't necessarily maybe like fit what the desired, I don't know, like adult is like, or he's not like the most 100% mature person all the time, but he has his shit figured out. And I think that goes to show you that, whatever feeling you think you associate with what it means to be an adult, it doesn't have to be that. Because I used to always think that an adult is someone who's like always 100% of the time serious, you know, they don't make stupid, that's what she said, that's what he said jokes. But I think, and I guess the more I grow up, the more I realize that being an adult, you can definitely define that for yourself, what that means to you. But I think that's very separate in terms of having your shit together, because I think every person, regardless if you're a serious, if you're a more funny person, if you're someone who likes to joke around a lot, even if you're different in all these different aspects, I think one thing that we do all need to align on, and this has nothing to do with our personality, nothing to do with our development in terms of our characteristics and our character as like more mature persons, but we do all have to kind of have our shit together in making sure that we are, I guess, responsible. And so, I don't know, I guess having that realization kind of comforts me, because I know that I might not necessarily, even in the future, be the grown up ass woman that I thought like I really wanted to be. And I might just be me and a bit more like grown up, maybe in age and definitely in experiences. But I know at the end of the day, I'll still have like my stuff figured out basically. And I don't necessarily need to feel like an imposter adult, like I'm still going to be an adult. That's just something that I get to define for myself. And so that's something I want you guys to just like ponder on a bit more, because I feel like a lot of us have this big fear of like, yeah, when we're growing up, we're not going to know what to do all the time, and we're not going to feel like we know what to do all the time, which, or like feel as the person who is like 100% confident in that. And I think that comes with like a lot of practice of being in different situations, but also you don't need to be the quote unquote ideal human, the ideal adult. You can be who you want to be. And I think that's something that you figure out though with time and with experiences At the same time, though, let's make sure we have our administrative tasks done. And so I hope today's episode, I know maybe was a bit more like practical and maybe not as deep, but I think this is something that's going to constantly come up anyways. And I hope at least that if you're starting off, or it doesn't even matter if you're starting off, but if you are someone who has paperwork from the government being sent to you, or has to or wants to figure out how to invest, you also know basically that you have to get on top of these things. And maybe you are looking to set yourself up for a better future when it comes to handling all of these complicated matters. And so maybe you pair up with your friends, maybe you set up a date for yourself to figure this shit out, maybe you reward yourself, but at least you stay on top of it and you try to get away from the shame spiral and try to get away from just the procrastination of it all, because at the end of the day, it's going to come to bite you back in the ass and you have to figure it out somehow. So you might as well make it a bit more fun. And I guess that allows us to have more fun experiences as we become adults. And so with that said, I hope, first of all, that this was a bit helpful and a bit more informative. And the question that I have to ask you guys is, if you have something like that you've been putting off for a while, right after this episode, I want you to call a friend, even if it is a virtual friend, and set up a day for you guys to meet and handle this as your first priority. And then also maybe hang out afterwards, because again, I think as adults, life becomes really busy and sometimes we don't make as much time as we need to continue to keep our fulfilling friendships. And so this can be another way that you experience something together and also handle your shit. Guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Uncomfortable Podcast. Make sure to tune in every Monday for a new episode on Spotify and YouTube, and go ahead and check out our TikTok and our Instagram for more content. Bye.